Get your cheap face out of my store before I call the police." The words cut through the smooth jazz, floating in the marble-clad air of Lux Vogue like a knife. The slap came next, sharp, dry, cold, echoing off glass cases lined with Italian handbags. Ethan Caldwell, 38, the store manager, held his hand in the air, frozen in the space where it had left a red mark on Monica Harris's cheek. 50 pairs of eyes stopped. The entire store went still. Phones came out. Cameras widened, LED lights casting a cold blue flash across his face like lightning. The sound of customers' sharp breaths, the click of high heels retreating on polished stone. Even a child's voice asking his mother, "Mom, why did that man hit her?" All layered together, pressing the silence into something heavy enough to crush. Monica didn't speak. Her hand rose gently to her cheek, hot, stinging, but her blazer remained crisp, her leather briefcase steady in her grip. Not the kind you carry for show. The kind heavy enough to hold a plan to dismantle an empire. Have you ever watched someone make a mistake you knew would destroy their entire career? 10 minutes earlier, Monica had only walked into Lux Vogue with one goal: to return a defective $3,200 handbag and speak with corporate about a quality control issue. The Italian leather bag, bought just 3 days ago, had a broken zipper and loose stitching, a craftsmanship flaw unacceptable for a luxury brand. The store's atmosphere then, chandeliers hanging from the high ceiling, stone floors polished to a mirror, soft music drifting, was designed to make every customer feel they were stepping into a cathedral of fashion. But this cathedral was not open to everyone. Monica approached the customer service desk. The blonde woman behind it, Amy, wore the by-the-book smile, but her eyes cooled quickly when she saw the receipt and the bag. "Luxury returns need manager approval, but he's busy." "I can wait," Monica replied, her voice calm, her breathing steady. She waited. 20 minutes. In that time, a white customer returned an identical bag and was refunded within 5 minutes. Another even received a gift card for the inconvenience. Finally, Ethan appeared. Navy suit, slicked hair, gold watch, the kind of cheap cologne that tried to pass for sophistication. "What's the problem?" he asked, but his eyes didn't meet hers. They looked at the bag as though it had insulted the brand itself. "I bought it 3 days ago. The quality is substandard. I want to return it and discuss this with corporate." Ethan smirked. "You sure you didn't damage it yourself? We don't take back items customers ruin." Monica's phone buzzed, a reminder. Board meeting at 2:30 p.m. She had exactly 10 minutes to resolve this and get her to the office 6 blocks away. "The zipper was broken when I bought it. This is a quality control failure, not me." Ethan stepped closer, raising his voice. "Listen, we don't serve people who buy luxury items just to show off and return them when they regret the price. This isn't Walmart. We have standards here." "Standards?" Monica asked back, her eyes flashing colder than the fluorescent lights above. Customers began to notice. Kelly Tran, a fashion blogger with 12,000 followers, started a live stream. "Big scene at Lux Vogue. Manager racially profiling a customer." Ethan glanced around, but his tone didn't soften. "How many credit cards you got maxed out? Trying to impress people at work? I see this type all the time." The crowd grew. Comments flooded Kelly's live stream. Fire him now. Get his name. It's 2025 and this still happens? Monica checked her watch, a custom Rolex worth more than Ethan's monthly salary. I need to speak with corporate, now. Corporate? You think they care about petty stuff like this? They pay me to handle people like you, Ethan said, folding his arms. Blocking her way, the air tightened. This was no longer about returning a bag. This was a test of dignity, a living indictment of racial bias in luxury retail. Monica stood still, eyes locked on his face as if memorizing every detail for testimony. The leather briefcase in her hand felt heavier, not from the documents inside, but from the numbers and clauses that could end his career. Ethan had no idea. The storm that had touched him wasn't even close to its full force. The air inside Lux Vogue thickened like mist before a storm. Whispers, the click of cameras, the hum of live streams, all merging into a hazy noise, yet still clear enough for everyone to hear every word from Ethan Caldwell. He stepped closer, the cheap cologne mixed with the sharp tang of sweat surrounding him. You should shop somewhere that fits your budget. The words dropped, shattering what little silence remained. A long ooh rose from the back. Kelly Tran tilted her phone, zooming in on his face, whispering into her live stream. There. Did you all hear that? Couldn't be clearer. I've got him right on camera. Kelly's screen ticked upward. 8,000 people now watching live. Comments flew. That's the evidence. Tag CNN. Post this on TikTok now. At the corner of the room, a white woman in her 60s stepped forward. Excuse me, but you're being extremely rude to this customer. Ethan whipped around, glaring. Please don't interfere. She's trying to scam us. Behind the counter, Amy, the blonde associate, glanced at her co-worker Mike, but neither dared step in. They stood like carved figures, faces caught between discomfort and fear. Monica adjusted her leather briefcase, and for a fleeting moment, a gleaming black Centurion American Express card flashed. The invite-only card for those spending over $250,000 a year. Ethan didn't notice, or noticed and ignored it. You think you can fool me? Buy something expensive, damage it, then return it for cash. We see this all the time with people like you. The last 3 words hissed through his teeth, the stench of racial bias rising as sharply as the metallic scent in the air after a lightning strike. The live stream jumped to 15,000 viewers. Videos from other angles began surfacing on TikTok. A Twitter account, NYC Fashion Watch, started a thread. Witnessing blatant racial discrimination at Lux Vogue, Manhattan. Store manager just slapped a black customer when she tried to return defective merchandise. It's 2025. This is unacceptable. The store's ground floor, normally a display gallery, turned into an arena. Customers from upstairs came down, phones in hand. In a midtown office, Sandra Blake, 44, the regional manager, got an urgent call. Store number 47. Manager is arguing with a customer. The clip is going viral. How many views? Sandra snapped her laptop shut, already on her feet. Over 20,000, and climbing. Sandra exhaled sharply. I'm on my way. Meanwhile, Ethan hadn't stopped. He signaled to 2 security guards, Marcus Lee and Victor Ramos. Security! Get her out of the store now! Marcus, 45, a former military man with seasoned eyes, looked at Monica, standing tall, her gaze calm, then at Ethan. "What's going on?" Marcus asked. "Defective merchandise. She broke it, wants a refund. Now she's causing trouble." Marcus scanned the crowd. Not a single face seemed to believe Ethan's words. "Threatening?" "I have not," Monica replied, her voice steady and clear. A few in the crowd spoke in unison. "She hasn't done anything," Kelly called out from the back, holding up her phone. 25,000 people just watched you slap her. Want me to replay it?" At that moment, the door swung open hard. Sandra Blake strode in, her high heels striking the marble in rapid succession. Her eyes swept the scene, customers, phones, Ethan, Monica. "What's going on here?" Her voice was sharp as a blade. "Thank God you're here, Sandra." Ethan began, but Monica cut him off. "There's nothing left to resolve quietly. Your manager just assaulted me in front of 50 witnesses." The word assault dropped like a stone into water, sending ripples through the crowd, drawing gasps and the whir of cameras. "Wait! She's exaggerating." "I barely touched," Ethan tried, but Kelly interjected. 25,000 live viewers saw you slap her. That's not barely touching." Sandra clenched her jaw, realizing this had already spiraled far beyond standard PR containment. Marcus took a step forward, his tone low. "Might be best to let higher-ups handle this, Caldwell." But Ethan had long since passed the point of no return. "She's trying to use social media to threaten me. I'm not scared. This is private property. I have the right to refuse service to anyone." A woman's voice from the crowd rang out. "You can't refuse based on skin color." Ethan turned. "Who said I mentioned skin color? This is about behavior, about respect, about knowing your place." The phrase "knowing your place" was like pouring oil on fire. The crowd erupted, several voices shouting, "That's racist!" Sandra closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. She knew that line would be a headline within the hour. Monica glanced at her watch. The board meeting had already begun, and she was still standing here. But this was no longer just about her. "My place?" Monica repeated, her voice low and icy. "And what exactly do you think that is, Caldwell?" Ethan faltered. I don't know what game you're playing, but this isn't a game," Monica cut in, her tone final. "And you should choose your next words very carefully." The crowd's pulse quickened, phones raised higher. A local news blogger had already started a separate live stream, introducing herself. "This is Sarah Martinez, NYC Street Beat. I'm witnessing the biggest customer service disaster of the year, right here at Lux Vogue." Miles away, the media monitoring AI for Harris Luxury Group, parent company of Lux Vogue, had already tagged the incident as a brand crisis. The negative sentiment score had surged 340% in 15 minutes. Ethan still had no idea he'd stepped into a battle for which he had no weapons. "You and people like you think social media is power, but it's not. I'm here to maintain standards." Sandra turned to him, her voice lowered in warning. "Caldwell, stop talking. Now." But it was already too late. Monica smiled faintly, though her eyes were as sharp as a scalpel. Inside her briefcase, internal reports, legal clauses, and revenue figures waited for the moment they would be unleashed. The moment Ethan and Sandra would learn what standards truly meant. The storm inside Lux Vogue was no longer a drizzle of social media chatter. This was a full-scale superstorm. Kelly Tran's live stream hit 30,000 viewers. On Twitter, the hashtag @LuxVogueRacist began climbing into the top trending topics in the New York area. Monica Harris stood still, every movement deliberate, as if she were orchestrating the entire room. Ethan Caldwell still hadn't read the situation. He thought he held the management authority in his hands. Sandra Blake tried to cut in. "Monica, perhaps we should speak privately." "No," Monica interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. "There's nothing to discuss privately when your manager has just committed assault in front of 50 witnesses and tens of thousands of people online." The word assault was not just a moral accusation, it was a legal term. In Sandra's mind, scenarios began to flash. Third-degree assault charges, PR fallout, the risk of a class action lawsuit. Ethan scoffed. "Oh, come on, I just tapped her. She's exaggerating to get something out of this." From the back, Kelly raised her phone. "The whole world is rewatching you slap her." That was no tap. Comments flooded in. "Fire him now. Get her a lawyer. NYPD should get involved." Security guard Marcus Lee stepped forward. "There are plenty of cameras in this store. Everything is recorded. I suggest you stop." Ethan's tone hardened. "You work for me, Marcus. Step back to your post." Marcus looked at Monica, then shook his head slightly. There are moments when loyalty belongs to justice. This was one of them. Monica slowly placed her leather briefcase on the service counter. The clasp clicked open, a small sound, but enough to draw every gaze. She pulled out a black leather bound file embossed in gold with the Harris Luxury Group logo. Ethan frowned. "What is this? You think I care about paperwork?" "You should," Monica replied, her eyes fixed on him. The first page revealed the latest quarterly performance report for Store 47, Lux Vogue, Manhattan. Her voice rang out clearly. Store 47 ranked lowest in the top 15% for customer service complaints. Customer satisfaction down 28% in the last 6 months. Ethan froze slightly. Sandra swallowed hard. These were not the kinds of reports anyone at store level had access to. The next page. 14 formal racial discrimination complaints in 6 months, all dismissed by the store manager without investigation. The crowd murmured. Kelly whispered into her phone. "You all hearing this? 14 cases in half a year." Monica turned another page, each one a fresh cut to Ethan's credibility. Settlements for sexual harassment claims, denied worker injury compensation cases, ignored workplace safety violations. Ethan's face drained of color. Sandra knew for certain these documents were only accessible at the highest executive level. Monica looked up, her dark eyes glinting like steel. "You talk about standards, Caldwell. Are these your standards?" The air grew thick. A few customers moved closer, eager to see exactly what she was holding. Ethan tried to push back. You're not authorized to have those documents. They're company property." "You're right," Monica nodded slightly. "They are company property, and I happen to own the company." The words landed like a thunderclap in the quiet showroom. She slid a platinum, silver-edged business card from her wallet and let it drop onto the counter. Monica Harris, Chief Executive Officer, Harris Luxury Group. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Someone nearly dropped their phone. Ethan stared at the card, then at Monica, then at Sandra, as if searching for an escape route. There was none. Harris Luxury Group, someone in the crowd murmured, is the parent company that owns the entire Lux Vogue chain. Ethan's voice cracked. No way. You're the one I called cheap-faced and told to know your place. Monica finished for him, her tone icy. Sandra quickly bent to pick up the card. Her eyes scanned the text, her hand trembling slightly. Madam CEO Harris, I had no idea. If you had known, would you have treated me differently? Monica asked flatly. The question drilled straight through Sandra's PR armor. She stayed silent. The only answer was silence. Monica turned to face the entire crowd and the thousands watching the live stream. So the standard of service here only applies if the customer might be your boss. But ordinary people don't matter. Ethan began to stammer. Ms. Harris, this is just a misunderstanding. No, Caldwell. This is systemic behavior, Monica replied, her voice unnervingly calm. And you've just triggered a crisis worth millions of dollars. Kelly angled her camera down toward the file. Over 50,000 people were now watching. On Monica's phone, a notification popped up. Harris Luxury Group shares had dropped 12% in the past 30 minutes. Market cap loss, $2.8 billion. Monica looked directly at Ethan. Do you know what you've just done? You didn't just slap a customer. You committed assault against the CEO of the company that owns this store in front of hundreds of thousands of witnesses. For the first time since the confrontation began, Ethan had no words. Sandra turned away, knowing that from this moment, the situation had escalated far beyond her control. Monica closed the file, placing it lightly on the counter. Now, Caldwell, we're going to talk about what real standards are. The space inside Lux Vogue seemed to shrink. Every eye was fixed on Monica Harris, the woman who had just torn away the glossy facade of the store and of Ethan Caldwell himself. The soft strains of jazz still floated from hidden speakers in the ceiling. But now they felt like the soundtrack of a tense film, each beat a drum roll before a turning point in fate. Monica set her leather briefcase on the counter and locked it with a decisive motion. Her voice was low, steady, and carried across the room as if each word was designed to pierce directly into the listener. Caldwell, you have exactly 10 minutes before my legal team and the NYPD arrive. In those 10 minutes, you will decide how you want to end your career and possibly your freedom. A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Kelly Tran angled her phone to zoom in on Ethan's face. The live stream ticked past 80,000 viewers. Comments flashed across the screen. Oh my God, she's going big! This is CEO-level crisis handling. Slap the big boss, Ixon's career suicide. Ethan tried to swallow, but his throat was bone dry. What do you mean? Monica tilted her head, her gaze ice, cold. I'm talking about two options. One, you fully cooperate, admit your actions, sign immediate termination papers, and hope your cooperation earns some leniency on the criminal charges. She paused for half a beat, her eyes sliding to the streaming camera. Two, you keep denying this, and I will pursue it to the fullest extent. Assault, civil rights violations, and if my lawyers can prove racial motivation, an added hate crime charge. In that case, you won't just lose your job, you'll lose your freedom." The words hate crime dropped like a weight. The crowd erupted. Sandra Blake's breathing quickened. This was no longer a per-emergency. It was now a potential criminal case. Marcus Lee, the security guard, stood silent, but his expression clearly sided with Monica. He spoke up. "Ms. Harris, I've seen this happen again and again. A black customer walks in here. They get watched, hassled. Standards are always the excuse." Monica turned to him and gave a small nod. "And that culture ends today." Ethan stepped back, his spine bumping the glass display. His voice trembled. Ms. Harris, I never—" "You never what?" Monica cut in, her tone as sharp as a judge's gavel. "Never thought I had the right to be treated with respect? Never remembered that the law doesn't care who your customer is, only about what you did?" Kelly whispered into her phone. "My God, she sounds like she's in an actual courtroom." Monica turned to Sandra. "Mrs. Blake, you're the regional supervisor. Were you aware of the 14 racial discrimination complaints filed against this store in the past 6 months?" Sandra stiffened. I don't lie. I have the email records, the sent dates and the responses, or rather the lack of them. Every time you ignored them, you helped enable the culture of bias here." The crowd held its breath. A few customers muttered, "Wow, it's not just Caldwell. The whole system's rotten." Monica went on, her tone slow and deliberate, like a professor giving a lecture, though every sentence landed like a hammer blow. "Your problem, Caldwell, isn't just that you slapped me. Your problem is you represent an entire management model that dismisses customers who don't fit your profile. And your problem, Blake, is that you allowed that model to exist." Ethan inhaled deeply, trying to muster a shred of resistance. "Maybe I should speak to a lawyer first." "Your lawyer will arrive late. The police won't," Monica said without blinking. Her phone lit up, a text from her assistant. "Legal team arriving in 5 minutes. NYPD confirmed en route." Monica read it, then looked Ethan dead in the eye. "You have exactly 5 minutes to choose, and don't think of this as a negotiation. This is an ultimatum." The air was so silent they could hear the hum of the ventilation system. The crowd no longer whispered. It was as if they were watching a legal drama unfold in real time. Only here, the main character could either change his life or lose everything in mere minutes. Sandra tried to find a way out. "CEO Harris, maybe. Maybe we can handle this internally." Monica turned to her with a cold smile. "Mrs. Blake, you are standing in front of hundreds of witnesses and tens of thousands watching online. Internally, no. This will be a public lesson for the entire company." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Yes, make it public!" The live stream comments exploded. "Every company needs a CEO like this." This is the definition of accountability. Monica turned back to Ethan. "You have wiped 12% off this company's stock value in 30 minutes. $2.8 billion evaporated because of one slap and a few of your words. That's the actual damage my lawyers will use as the basis for damages." Ethan opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked around. The people, the cameras, the lights, all seemed aimed directly at him. Monica lowered her voice, but every syllable still rang clear. "Caldwell, real power isn't in who you can slap. Real power is in sending someone out of this store feeling respected, and you've lost that. The chime above the door rang. 3 Harris luxury group attorneys walked in, charcoal suits and expensive briefcases in hand. Behind them, 2 NYPD officers moved straight toward the service counter. Monica stepped back, gesturing toward Ethan. "This is the man you need to speak to," she said. The crowd pressed closer. Everyone knew this was the moment the power dynamic had flipped completely. And Ethan Caldwell was in checkmate. 2 NYPD officers stepped forward, their badges catching the light from Lux Vogue's chandelier. A tall, silver-haired man spoke first. "Detective David Chen, NYPD. We've received a report of an assault." The air in the store grew heavy. The background music was gone. Someone had turned off the speakers. All that remained was the sound of phone cameras recording and the breaths of hundreds of people. Monica Harris stood tall, her gaze as steady as a fortress wall. "Yes, Detective. At approximately 2:15 p.m., this store's manager, Ethan Caldwell, slapped me in front of dozens of witnesses after making remarks of a racially discriminatory nature." Ethan flinched when the words "racially discriminatory" were spoken aloud to the police. Detective Chen gave a small nod and signaled for the officer beside him to open a notebook. Harris Luxury Group's lead counsel, Adrian Sterling, stepped forward, his voice precise and clipped, as though presenting to a judge. "Detective, we have video from at least 6 different angles, including store security footage, with full audio. We also have over 100 witnesses, and social media metrics show that more than 80,000 people watched the moment of the assault live." The crowd murmured as Sterling stressed the number. From the corner, Kelly Tran muttered into her live stream, "This is the definition of undeniable evidence." Ethan glanced around like an animal cornered. Wait, Monica cut in, her voice cold and sharp. "Caldwell, before the police place you under arrest, I am going to give you one chance. Your only chance." Her words made everyone freeze. A CEO, after being slapped by an employee, was offering a chance. Ethan swallowed hard, clinging to a sliver of hope. A chance for what?" Monica drew a deep breath, then spoke slowly and clearly. "You have 2 options. 1, you are arrested right now and face criminal charges, assault and battery, violation of civil rights, and if the court finds motive, an added hate crime charge. Your career ends. Your record is permanently stained, and your family bears the weight of public fallout." She paused, letting the weight of the words sink into the minds of everyone present. "Or 2, you fully cooperate with the reform program I am about to implement. You will resign immediately, complete 200 hours of training in bias awareness and anti-discrimination, and become a living example of the damage racial prejudice causes in customer service. You will speak publicly, share your story, and work with the legal team to identify and eliminate discriminatory behavior across the entire system." A wave of murmurs swept the crowd. Some whispered, "She's saving him? No, this is a smart punishment." Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it again. Clearly, he hadn't expected a second option. Why would you do that? I don't deserve forgiveness." Monica met his eyes, her gaze darkening. "Because punishment only makes one person disappear. Reform can change an entire system. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the customers who will never have to experience what happened today again." The statement landed like a moral verdict, making Ethan lower his head. Detective Chen interjected. "Ms. Harris, if Mr. Caldwell agrees to the terms, we will need a legal document outlining the agreement for reduced charges." Sterling immediately produced a folder. "We've prepared it. Just fill in the name and sign." Ethan stood still for several seconds, eyes on the paper, then picked up the pen and signed. Camera shutters snapped relentlessly. The live stream passed 100,000 live viewers. As he set the pen down, Monica's voice was calm yet commanding. "This agreement is legally binding. If you violate even one clause, all evidence will be made public, and I will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Do you understand?" Ethan nodded, almost whispering. "I understand." Sandra Blake still stood frozen, a cold sweat down her spine. Monica turned to her. "Mrs. Blake, now it's your turn, but you don't get to choose between prison and reform. You will take on a new role, Head of Diversity and Inclusion Implementation, overseeing the elimination of all discriminatory practices across all 847 stores. Your performance will be measured by satisfaction scores from minority customers." Sandra's eyes widened. You're promoting me?" "No. I'm giving you the hardest job of your life. And you will do it, or you will leave," Monica replied, her tone void of emotion. The crowd erupted in murmurs. This was not the revenge scene they expected. This was a restructuring campaign executed on the spot. Then Marcus Lee heard his name. "Marcus, I want you to oversee the training of all security staff on bias recognition and conflict de-escalation techniques. If you accept, you will be reassigned to headquarters to work directly with me." Marcus smiled and nodded. "I'm in, Ms. Harris." The tension in the room began to shift into something else: curiosity, admiration, even trust. Monica made a slow turn, her eyes sweeping over every person holding a camera. "Keep recording. I want everyone to see that justice is not just about punishment. Justice is about change, so no one has to go through this a second time." The live stream chat exploded. "This CEO is incredible. Wish every company did this. Future Harvard case study right here." In a store known for selling luxury goods, the most valuable item today was a lesson in power and responsibility, and Monica Harris had just packaged it into a message for the world. As Ethan Caldwell's signature dried on the contract, the atmosphere inside Lux Vogue shifted. The tension was still there, but it now felt like a courtroom that had just delivered a verdict and was moving on to rehabilitation. Monica Harris took a deep breath and stepped forward to the counter. The chandelier's light spilled down, surrounding her like the spotlight of a stage. "Now," she said clearly, making sure every microphone and camera could capture her words, "we are going to turn Store 47 from a symbol of discrimination into the starting point of a system built on respect and fairness." The Harris Luxury Group media team had just arrived, carrying professional cameras, wireless microphones, and a backdrop printed with the company's logo. Staff quickly transformed the marble lobby, once the scene of the incident, into the center for announcing a new policy. Sandra Blake stood off to the side, still visibly stunned. Marcus Lee stayed close to Monica, his eyes full of respect. Ethan, though not in handcuffs, sat under the unyielding weight of the crowd's stares, as if bound to his seat. Monica signaled to Adrian Sterling, the lead counsel, who handed her a tablet. She swiped the screen, revealing a reform blueprint. Here and now, I declare, Harris Luxury Group will implement the Lux Respect program across all 847 stores in the company. This program rests on 4 pillars: transparent oversight, mandatory training, direct feedback channels, and managerial restructuring. She held the tablet up so the cameras could capture each bullet point. 1. Transparent oversight. All stores will install AI-powered camera systems to analyze service interactions against a standard of unbiased service. Reports will be sent directly to the Diversity and Inclusion Department that Sandra will lead. 2. Mandatory training. Every employee will complete at least 40 hours of training on recognizing unconscious bias and conflict, handling skills. Senior managers will be required to undergo 80 hours of advanced training with realistic scenario simulations. 3. Direct feedback channels. We will launch the Lux Respect app for customers to submit feedback instantly, which will be sent automatically to an independent oversight board. Every submission must receive a response within 24 hours, regardless of content. 4. Managerial restructuring. We will overhaul the management hiring process, adding evaluation criteria based on satisfaction scores from minority customers. Any manager receiving more than 2 serious complaints within 6 months will be suspended for investigation. A few whistles and claps broke out in the crowd. Kelly Tran said into her live stream, "Everyone, this isn't crisis management anymore. This is a full-scale overhaul." Monica gave a small smile, though her voice remained firm. Store 47 will close for 1 week for all staff to undergo retraining. When it reopens, it will be the model store for the Lux Respect program, a place where every customer, regardless of race, background, or wallet size, is treated equally. She turned to Marcus. Marcus Lee will head the company-wide security training division, responsible for teaching Conflict D, escalation skills, and bias recognition to all security personnel. Marcus stood tall and nodded. "I promise to give it everything I've got." The crowd applauded. Ethan kept his head down, perhaps realizing for the first time in years the true value of respect. Monica continued, "We will establish a $25 million customer dignity fund to compensate any customer who has experienced discrimination within our system. The review board will include civil rights attorneys and community representatives, independent from company management." The live stream chat exploded. "25 million! This is real accountability." "They're doing what other big brands should be doing." Sterling leaned in to whisper something to Monica, who nodded and turned back to the crowd. "We will also change our business partnership policy. Within 18 months, 40% of all supply contracts will be awarded to minority-owned businesses. This is not just a change in how we serve, it's a change in how we operate." Ethan glanced at Monica, his eyes showing, perhaps for the first time, a flicker of recognition. Monica closed the announcement with a steady, grounded statement. "Today we witnessed an act that is unacceptable. But if we stop at outrage, tomorrow everything will be the same. I choose to turn this storm into a blueprint for a new system. One where everyone has a place." Thunderous applause followed. Some in the crowd stood, whistling in approval. The live stream passed 200,000 concurrent viewers. Outside, reporters were already gathering for the impromptu press conference. As the technical crew began packing up, Monica turned to Ethan and Sandra. "Tomorrow, we begin. Not just to save Harris Luxury Group, but to prove that in business, respect is never optional." Her gaze was sharp as steel, but deep within it was an unshakable conviction. This system would change, starting right here, at the very eye of the storm. 6 months had passed since Lux Vogue's Store 47 became the epicenter of a media firestorm. The memory of that slap, the look of contempt, and the social media storm that followed still lingered in many minds. But now, the space was almost unrecognizable. The clear glass storefront reflected a brand new gold, lettered sign: "Lux Respect. Everyone deserves dignity." Below it, the Harris Luxury Group logo sat alongside a QR code that linked directly to the Lux Respect app, a tool with over 2 million downloads and an average rating of 4.9 stars. Inside, the marble floors still gleamed white, and the crystal chandeliers still glowed brilliantly. But the atmosphere had changed. The staff's eyes were warm. Their steps moved toward customers instead of merely glancing at them. Every counter displayed a real-time customer satisfaction score. Marcus Lee, now the Global Director of Security Training, stood in the center of the lobby, addressing a group of new security hires. His voice was steady and firm. "Remember this. Our job is not just to protect merchandise, but to protect the customer experience. Recognizing bias isn't an abstract concept. It's a required skill. If a customer complains about attitude, you address it immediately. No excuses." A young employee raised a hand. "If a situation gets tense, what should I do first?" Marcus smiled. "First, lower your voice. Second, invite the customer to a private area to resolve the matter, avoiding turning an incident into a public spectacle. And always remember, every camera here is both legal evidence and a mirror reflecting our attitude." In her new office on the second floor, Sandra Blake, once the regional supervisor who stayed silent in the face of 14 discrimination complaints, reviewed the monthly report. On her screen were statistics that made her smile for the first time in a long while. 87% fewer discrimination-related complaints across the system, a 72% increase in satisfaction among minority customers, and a 30% rise in employee retention beyond 1 year. Sandra turned to her assistant. "Send this report to Mrs. Harris right away, and make sure to attach the plan for expanding Lux Respect into the European market." No one would recognize the woman who once avoided responsibility. The unrelenting pressure from Monica Harris had turned her into a true reformer. As for Ethan Caldwell, once the face of the scandal, he now stood on stage at Harvard Business School. Behind him, bold letters read, "From mistake to action, a journey of transformation." Ethan stepped to the podium, took a deep breath, and spoke. "I used to think the power of a manager was the ability to command and remove anyone I didn't like. 6 months ago, I lost everything: my reputation, my job, and almost my freedom, because of a slap and words full of prejudice. But Monica Harris didn't throw me into the pit. She made me face myself and gave me a choice. I chose to change." He spoke about the 200 hours of bias training, about standing before students and business leaders, sharing the shame of watching that video again. I learned that an apology isn't enough. Changing behavior is the only real answer. The hall was silent, then erupted in applause. In the audience, Monica Harris sat quietly, never needing to take the stage. This wasn't a personal victory. It was proof that one person's change could spark a chain reaction. At headquarters, the business data spoke just as clearly. Harris Luxury Group's stock price hit an all-time high. Revenue from new minority customers increased by 156%. 3 major partners who had withdrawn contracts returned after seeing the results of reform. In a press conference, Monica said, "Revenue is only part of it. True success is when a customer walks into any of our stores knowing they will be treated fairly, without conditions." The story of Store 47 was now taught in MBA programs and appeared in the training manuals of major corporations. The term Lux model became a buzzword in retail, a model for handling crises through systemic reform, not just individual punishment. Outside Store 47, a group of law students took photos in front of a sign reading, "All customers deserve dignity, respect, and excellent service, period." One of them said, "This place used to be infamous for a slap. Now it's famous for shattering an old culture." Standing nearby, Marcus Lee overheard and simply smiled. He knew this was only the beginning. And above all, none of them had forgotten the message from that day. True power is not in pushing people down, but in lifting them up. 9 months after the day of the fateful slap, the story of Store 47 was no longer confined to the United States. In Paris, a luxury fashion chain signed a partnership with Harris Luxury Group to implement the Lux Respect model across all 120 of its European locations. In Tokyo, retail corporations invited Marcus Lee to train security teams for airports and shopping centers. In Cape Town, South Africa, the Lux Respect app was localized into the native language and had become the most widely used tool in the region's retail sector for reporting discrimination. Monica Harris flew from city to city, but whenever she was asked about the moment that made her most proud, her answer was always the same. "It's when I see the stories of customers who have experienced discrimination being acknowledged and addressed immediately, no matter where they are, no matter who they are." Ethan Caldwell was now the face of a global campaign called From Prejudice to Purpose. He stood before thousands of students and business leaders, openly admitting his mistakes and describing his journey of reform. In every place he visited, there were always people who quietly came up to shake his hand and say, "Your story made me look at myself differently." Sandra Blake had become a frequent guest at international conferences on diversity and inclusion. She not only presented statistics, an 89% drop in discrimination complaints across the system, but also shared behind the scenes stories, how a new employee in Texas saved the company from a lawsuit by courageously challenging a co-worker's discriminatory behavior, or how a store in Toronto doubled its customer base after overhauling its entire service process. Lux Respect was no longer just a program. It had become a new standard. Other major corporations were forced to adjust their policies to avoid unfavorable comparisons. The media called it the Lux effect. When a company handles a crisis correctly, it compels an entire industry to change. In a TED Talk viewed more than 15 million times, Monica Harris stood under the signature red spotlight, her voice low but unwavering. That slap could have been just a short news story, forgotten in days. But we turned it into a blueprint for a more respectful society. The story doesn't end with a single manager being held accountable. It begins with millions of customers knowing they deserve fair treatment. And when a real story inspires real change, it doesn't just live in memory. It lives in policy, in behavior, and in culture. The audience rose to their feet in applause, not just because the message was powerful, but because they knew what Monica said wasn't theory. It was something that had happened, was happening, and would continue to happen. On the reopening day of Store 47, customers lined up outside. Some came to shop, others simply to see with their own eyes where it all began. Among them was an elderly white woman with silver hair, the same woman who had spoken up for Monica during that chaotic day. She smiled as she watched the staff offer tea and personally greet each guest. "Now I believe anyone who walks in here will be treated with respect." Marcus Lee, standing near the entrance, gave a slight nod. Ethan Caldwell, now dressed in a simple suit, wearing a guest speaker badge, smiled and greeted her as well. Monica Harris stepped into the center of the lobby, looking around. The crystal chandeliers still sparkled, footsteps still echoed against the marble floors, but the feeling was entirely different. In her eyes, this was no longer just a store. It was a symbol of transforming a moment of injustice into the spark for a movement. She turned toward the live-stream camera and spoke slowly, clearly. "The real stories, yours, mine, all of ours, have the power to change the world if we dare to tell them and dare to act." And so, from a single slap on a Manhattan street corner, a wave of reform had crossed oceans and borders, reminding humanity that respect is never a privilege. It is the inherent right of every human being. In business or in life, true power does not lie in a title or a business card, but in the ability to turn the right values into mandatory standards. Monica Harris did not stop at dealing with one individual. She changed an entire system so that every customer, anywhere, could walk in with respect and leave with their dignity intact. If you believe that respect must come before profit, like this video, subscribe to join in on real stories that create real change, and comment below with the words, "Keep dignity." Because sometimes a story does more than touch the heart. It rewrites the rules of the game.